We are now entering what I call the stabilization corridor. If the past few days felt like an energetic eruption, like something cracked open, like the ground beneath your old reality shifted good, that was the disruption. But disruption is not the transformation. The window between February 22nd and February 25th is not about chaos. It's about construction. The explosion has already happened. The emotional spikes, the sudden realizations, the tension, that was the catalyst. Now comes the quiet. And most people fail in the quiet because silence feels like nothing is happening. But silence is where decisions harden into destiny. Right now, you're standing in the aftermath, looking at your life, sensing that something is different, but not fully seeing the shape yet. This is where many people disconnect. They assume the opportunity passed with the drama. They think the eclipse was the event. It gobbles. The eclipses break things open. They don't. Building happens in the stillness that follows. When you choose differently, when you respond differently, when you refuse to rebuild the same structure that just collapsed. What we're experiencing right now is energetic stabilization. Think of it like concrete being poured. The mixing phase. Messy, loud, uncomfortable. But this phase, this is when the concrete sets. And once it sets, its shape holds. The choices you make in these next few days, what you tolerate, what you release, what you commit to, will likely define the next several months of your life. That's why you cannot afford to check out. Just because the drama has calmed.com does not mean inactive.com means structure is forming. In the previous message, we warned about falling asleep after the breakthrough. This is that moment. Stay aware. Because this is where timelines lock in. This is what happens immediately after a wake-up call. And this is the most dangerous moment. Because right after clarity comes comfort. Right after breakthrough comes the temptation to go back to sleep. The pressure lifts, the urgency fades, and suddenly the old habits start whispering again. This is where the real test begins. Not when everything is chaotic, but when everything is calm. Now the question isn't what happened to you. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you slide back into the routines that feel safe? Or will you take the small, uncomfortable actions that match the version of yourself you saw last week? Because this window isn't about dramatic moves. It's about grounded decisions. February 22nd through the 25th is not high voltage chaos. It's integration. It's the bridge between revelation and reality, between insight and implementation. And that bridge determines everything, right? Now there is a rare stabilization pattern forming. Energy that was volatile is becoming structured. Momentum that was scattered is becoming directional. And when that kind of alignment follows disruption, it accelerates long-term construction. Windows like this don't show up often. When intense breakthrough energy is immediately followed by stabilization support. That's rare, very rare. It's like a safety net appearing, right? After you leap, but here's the catch. The net doesn't catch you. Midair, you still have to land. So what does landing actually look like? It looks practical. It looks small. It looks like making the call you've been avoiding, cleaning up the commitment you've been tolerating, setting the boundary you knew you needed, starting the thing you keep postponing. Nothing dramatic, but deeply decisive. And if this resonates with you, if you can feel that something shifted and you don't want to drift back into autopilot, make sure you subscribe right now. Because this year isn't about talking about energy, it's about applying it. We're building a community here that doesn't just observe shifts, we move with them. And the next few weeks are going to be critical. Don't miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about how to recognize that you are actually inside this window and not just imagining it so. How do you know this isn't just another ordinary week? Here's the signal. A sudden intolerance for your own excuses. Things you've justified for years. suddenly feel heavy. The stories that once comforted you, at least it's stable. It's not the right time. I'll change when things improve. They stop feeling true. Not dramatically, but undeniably. Let me ground this in something real. Imagine someone who has worked for years in a job that pays the bills, but slowly drains their spirit. Their old baseline was survival. It's stable. Be grateful. Wait for a better moment. During the intense breakthrough phase, they may have felt emotional, angry, restless, even desperate to quit, but it felt reactive, chaotic, risky. Now the chaos is gone, and that's the difference. They wake up on a random Tuesday, no anger, no panic, no dramatic urge, just clarity. A quiet, internal decision. I can't keep doing this. Not emotionally done, structurally done. The excuse, at least it's stable, no longer holds weight, and when an excuse collapses, action becomes inevitable. They might not resign that day, but they booked a doctor's appointment. They've been postponing because of stress. They update the resume. They reach out to that old contact. They take one physical step that acknowledges the internal shift. That's what this window is. About not quitting impulsively, not blowing up your life, but translating realization into movement, insight into paperwork, clarity into conversations, awareness into concrete action. That is stabilization now. Before we go deeper into how to maximize these next 4 days strategically, if you're someone who wants to go beyond inspiration and actually understand the mechanics behind these cycles, the psychology, the timing, the structural patterns, I'm sharing much deeper breakdowns inside the members section. We're having exclusive discussions, mapping real-life strategies, and going into specifics that simply can't be covered publicly. If you feel called to take this seriously, consider joining us there. Because this phase, this transition from high energy to grounded action, is subtle and is easy to mishandle. Which brings us to something important. This transition is tricky because your brain, your mind, is about to try something. It's going to try to trick you. It will whisper, nothing is happening anymore. The intensity is gone. Maybe you imagine the whole shift. Understand this. The ego loves drama. Drama feels important. Drama feels powerful. Drama feels like progress. But sustainable change, it's quiet. And quiet feels boring to the ego. Right now, you have to be smarter than your own mind. Because the absence of noise does not mean the absence of movement. In fact, this calm phase is where real momentum locks in. You are no longer being pushed. Now, you are being tested. You are moving from being carried by external force to walking under your own power. And that shift changes everything. Which brings us to the second major characteristic of this window, acceleration of cause and effect. The gap between what you initiate and what comes back is shrinking rapidly. If you put out hesitation, you will feel resistance almost immediately. A promising deal stalls. A message goes unanswered, momentum freezes. Not as punishment as feedback, but here's the empowering part. If you put out clarity, even small, decisive clarity, you will see movement with surprising speed. Tiny aligned actions, clear. Words, clean decisions. Doors respond. It's as if reality is highly sensitive right now. Listening, waiting, ready to lock in a direction based on your input. Let's make this practical. Imagine a relationship that has been undefined for months. Blurry, unspoken, stagnant. You, VA, been waiting for the other person to make a move. That's old energy. Passive, deferred, hope-based now. Imagine you decide to speak plainly, not to control the outcome, not to force anything, but to be clear. This is where I stand. This is what I need. That's decisive. Energy. In a normal climate, you might wait weeks for clarity. Right now, the response comes fast. Maybe it's a clear yes, maybe it's a clear no. But either way, the fog lifts, and when fog lifts, stagnation ends. This window isn't about guaranteeing outcomes, it's about accelerating truth, and truth, delivered quickly, is a gift, even when it's uncomfortable. So the real question becomes, what are you putting into motion? Because right now, it's coming back faster than you think. The real breakthrough is not just in moving forward, it's in staying consistent after the excitement fades. Because clarity always demands action, and the universe responds to clarity with clarity. You are no longer in the phase of waiting for things to happen to you. You are in the phase of moving things forward yourself. This period is not about forcing outcomes through aggression, it's about leading with authenticity. It's about showing life and showing yourself that you are ready to receive answers, even if those answers feel uncomfortable. As we move deeper into February 23rd and 24th, the energy shifts again, not from decision making, but to discipline. This is the testing phase of stabilization, because the universe does not only test whether you can make a change, it tests whether you can stand by that change when the emotional rush disappears. This is where most people lose momentum. They make powerful, internal declarations, they set boundaries, they decide to change their lives, and then a few days later, they start questioning themselves, because the external world hasn't immediately transformed to validate their decision. But transformation is not instant. Physical reality is dense. It takes time for your external life to reorganize itself around your internal shift. Think of it like rewriting the structure of your life's foundation. Between February 22nd and 25th, your only real job is consistency, not perfection, consistency. When old habits try to return, and they will, you don't fight them. You simply observe them. You don't invite them back.